Louis Longbeard, what's going on?
Hey y'all, welcome everyone. This is the real Jimmy Roberts one, and we got a great show for you here today. We've got with us a man who's been doing this for a long time. When I say doing this for a long time, he's been looking, thinking outside the box as far as Mars, the moon, and everything that's associated with that. And I think everyone that's been on this channel live or otherwise already knows who Chris Maroney is. And he has the channel Mars, Anomalies, and Beyond, as well as, I think, a Moon Anomalies or and Beyond, or is it Lunar?
Lunar anomalies, yeah.
Lunar's
And beyond.
Anomalies and Beyond. And we've got him with us here again today. And we also now, he, of course, is on, it's going to be to your right and to your left, we have Dave Gannett. And he has the YouTube channel Mars X3D The Evidence, and that X stands for cross, and we're going to explain that in a minute. I feel like most people here pretty much know uh, what Chris Maroney's all about, but I want to introduce you to Dave here today, and it's a real pleasure to have both you guys here. And welcome to 2021. How are you guys?
You know, if I was any better, Jimmy, I'd be you.
Oh man, that's what I like to hear. Hey, we're going to have you on here regular. Chris, Chris, don't be afraid to say the same thing. Never mind, Dave. Dave, give everybody a quick rundown of how you got involved in the whole Mars episode that we have going on here. Where did you get your start? You actually got your fingers dirty in actual archaeology work at one point, didn't you?
I did. I was 3D documentarian on three expeditions, archaeological expeditions to the Middle East, and had built a special rig for that. But I've been doing 3D all of my life. And so actually, I was introduced to it at the age of about three. My dad was involved with 3D work in the war effort, photogrammetry, early development of the TrueView viewer, which was purchased by GAF, became the Viewmaster. So 3D
Wow.
has been part and parcel of my life for a very long time. And I got into it, I guess it was 213 or 214, somewhere in there. And I thought, with my background in as an amateur archaeology and 3D and my many, many years as a pilot and looking down and recognizing non-fractal shapes, that type of thing, I thought, I'm going to get it. I'm going to take a look and I'm going to debunk this in 5 minutes. And I got on Google Mars, and you could have knocked me over because within about 15 minutes, I'd found archaeological ruins, absolutely undisputed in my mind. And within another half hour, I'd found three or four more. And that just absolutely turned my world upside down. So I began digging around, finding stuff just like y'all did. And I finally realized that, there's so much fringe stuff going on. There's so much pareidolia. I hate that word, but so much fantasy work going on in this area. And so, to my way of thinking, I thought if I can present non-fractal, in other words, things that show the mathematics of intelligent agency. So if I can show non-fractal anomalies in stereographic 3D, that's a game changer because then the person can make up their own mind. They don't have to listen to me or anybody else. They look at it, make up your own mind.
Well, he's right about that, and we're going to talk about that some more here in a minute because that has absolutely changed the way I do things. When I got introduced to Dave Gannett, and he took the time to show me what he knew, because it really takes away, man, 98% of the pareidolia. And what I mean by that is when we're seeing things that we really think is something like a person or this or that, and although it may be something artificial, it's we waste a lot of time, spend a lot of wheels chasing things like that. And when you look at it in 3D, it's like, oh man, well, that's not what that is. But, I see something else that, it really, really helps. That he's a hard guy to follow when he comes in and introduces himself, Chris. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got anything to say to this guy? I mean, we've been
Uh,
working together on stuff now for a while.
No, I mean, I love the way he introduced that Mars, the 3D kind of look, because it's awesome and the way he set that up, because when you do actually look at them and train your eyes to do that, it literally has depth. It's like the same thing I do, only you're doing in two pictures. You're doing right or left or whatever it is you want to set it up, and then you just kind of adjust your eyes and you can see the 3D. What I do is I just bring like just a tad of the burn tool, get more of the depth into it. So he does it in a lot easier way, where you just look at it, boom, and once you've done it once or twice, it's pretty much, yeah, you got it dead on. So that's definitely a useful tool, and I know he's taught you there, and I know I went over there and said, like those old, remember those old pictures where people would look and they go, "Hey, see the sailboat?" And you couldn't see it no matter how much you try. I tried, I
Yeah,
could not
that's
see
right.
it, but his 3D thing works for me. It's like I could just do it, get my eyes set perfectly, boom, and I can see it. So it works really, really well.
I catch a lot of grief from people who say, well, why don't you do parallel view or anaglyph? I won't go into the details for that, but X3D, cross viewing or cross-eyed three-dimensional viewing, first of all, is frictionless. There's no equipment involved. Second of all, it's an industry standard in science, in engineering, in molecular biology, you name it. All of these people, men and women, use X3D to view the projects that they're working on. It's a perfect way to visualize in 3 dimensions without having to invest hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in very specialized equipment. So there's Jimmy putting out his specialized
I
equipment.
mean, who wants to do
And
this anyway?
yeah, you look very, very hip, actually. So anyway, so that's why the X3D. It's the best way to see large format stereo pairs.
I
The
just
end.
I just want y'all to know that Zoom just gave me a gift. They removed the 40-minute time limit from our
I
meetings.
saw that.
And now, why
Yeah.
in the world are we now that yeah, uh, Zoom meetings? It's a lot more people you can have in there than once before you go to that. I don't, that's a bunch of bull. The other glasses. Now these are
Uh,
the
the
mirrored glasses.
the mirror, I've never tried those.
Well,
Mm-mm.
they work very well for left right, and I will talk about that in a minute, because I want to instruct anyone where to go and why to go and this and that when we start throwing a couple of these up here that actually include some of your crossview 3D. But my point is going to be, is anyone that needs to use these, on my on marsfam.net, I usually include the crossview 3D plus the orientation for left right viewing, which requires these. And some people do use this, but if you can do this, you can sure do the cross 3D, because both of them are basically doing the same thing with your eyes, just in a different manner. So one of the things that we all agree on, everyone here, is that something's going on Mars that is being kept from us, and that these rovers, well, satellite imagery as well, but rovers are sending back images, and we're talking Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity. There's several. They're sending back images, Viking, that are not true. There's falsification in these images, and we know that there is an obfuscation process. We know these images oftentimes look like artwork, and a lot of times when they look more like a painting than anything, I know that there's heavy, heavy obfuscation going on. And we keep trying to find ways to find their mistakes, whether these the doctoring, as you want to call it. We'd like to use that long 16-syllable word, obfuscation. The techniques that they use, they may have differed over time, because in some of the older images we see a lot of blatant skews and masks, whereas now there's a tendency to, although we see those, there's a tendency to just kind of really truly obfuscate and just kind of blend everything together where you really don't notice. But whether it's human or done by an algorithm, which is still a human has programmed that algorithm, has written that software, there's still going to be mistakes, and we found them. We found a number of them. I think we found hundreds of them. What we want to look at today is there's a guy that views, I think, all our channels. He goes by the name Sanford. He had emailed me about an Opportunity image, and it's a NavCam image. And he thought there was a lot of very interesting stuff on it. And see a little preview of it right there. And I asked Dave and Chris about this, if they had ever really looked into it, because it really looks suspicious to me. And they both told me, oh, well, yeah, we have. And let's take a quick look at this. And everyone, this is Opportunity rover, and this was from Sol 4036 of the Opportunities. I don't know how far that thing traveled. Let's get this thing pulled up here. Here we go. Now, what we have here is the NavCam image, and the NavCam usually, they always take. They're going to have a left and right stereoscopic image, and this may look fairly innocent to most people, and I think what Sanford was talking about when he sent this to me, he was concerned about this group of objects over here on the left. And I'm just going to say that the first thing I'd noticed about them was, well, yeah, I'm concerned about them too, but you really just can't, if I want to say prove anything, I don't know if those are the words, because it's hard to prove a lot of things when they're just, when they're tampering with these images. I think we could prove that the images are tampered with, but this group of, let's just call them objects, there's something about them that stands out to me. Chris, what's your first impression when you see these, let's just say these three large objects?
I mean, right off the bat, you can tell this is CGI. This has been censored in a way. And I got to add, too, real quick, is that the photo I got actually has more detail than this. It's low res, but it has more detail where you can see things up on that very left rock. It has like these circles. There's actually circles and stuff like that.
That's probably one of the other NavCam images. There's numerous images of this.
Right. It could very well be. And the one I have, when I went through it, enhanced it, these are not rocks at all. These are actually parts on the ground. Like the one on the very lowest, going to the right, almost to the bottom, that big rock. It's got right there, right in the center, right there.
Right here? Yes.
That is not a rock at all. And all of these have been dressed up to look like they're rocks, and they're being censored. And they're not rocks. Look at the rock on the right. I think I get a kick out of that one. That one's pretty funny.
Well, this actually what's going on is this is the original.
Right.
Yeah, I'll get over there. I was on the wrong image to begin with. This is the same image. It's just that when we had some work done on it already. This was the first group of them over to the left, which I'm with you on that. To me, this is some of the more harmless of what we're going to see here in a minute. Now, Dave pointed out to me that not only was this obvious, what did you call it, Chris? What was the word you used for it?
Censoring?
Yeah, censoring, whatever.
CGI.
CGI, yeah.
Name it.
CGI, because it almost looks like these are painted on there. Those don't look like rocks. I mean, you can see where areas are smoothed over. There's all sorts of protrusions going on. And Dave, I think you had mentioned to me this area right here, where we're seeing what at first you may think is some type of inscription, but what did we find on that? And I think it was with the 3D that we noticed something very specific about these two little lines right here.
Well, what literally stuck out for me was the white object on the left with the dark center.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece of white that's closest to us in 3D is sticking way out. There's no way to describe it unless you see it in 3D. It's like a piece of metal that's been bent upward and outward.
Right.
But yeah, those sure look like some kind of inscriptions.
Well, now these are the ones. This is probably a different angle than we were looking at before, but when seeing from a different angle in 3D, we noticed these were peeled up. These are actually looks like something hit with heat or something, and they're peeled up off the surface. And I think we'll see that in another image here in a minute. This image, this has a object right here in the middle that stuck out to me. I mean, Dave, how many times have we seen these rocks that are coming out at angles 30, 45, 50 degrees out of the ground, apparently? They're just magical.
They don't seem to fall over, do they?
No, they don't. You ever
the
see
largest and heaviest part of the rock is the one that's part of it's up in the air. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and the thing is, people, are starting to think, well, this is perfectly normal. I've had people write me and tell me, well, that's how things happen on Mars. They also told me sometimes things can look like buildings on Mars where they would not look like that on Earth. You know, who's got the, I mean, you talking about the wool pulled over people's eyes, you know, they're believing everything that they're told. This object, this is the one, Chris, that we were looking at just a minute ago, and then we're going to show both versions. I have a version of that what I did, everyone, if you, this obfuscation process that we talked about, the way I see it is the computer software is the main culprit here, and it's going in and taking anything that may look artificial to us, and I'm sure it's a very complicated algorithm or sets of, and it's either going to blend them in with the surrounding area, or if it can't do that, a lot of times it'll just blur it. And I don't know how many human eyes actually look at these things before they go out. There may be a process of double checking, but it's the accidents we're looking for, the places where they've made mistakes. And one of the places that they can make mistakes is in shadowed areas, because I don't think the algorithm is looking at this and saying we had a problem there, because you can't see anything at all because it's dark. But if you have just enough light and you can go in and lift those shadows, which is what I did here. Actually, that's the size of it. You know, we're talking about 1 foot across. That's as big as it is, 0.32 meters. Now, I went and lifted the shadows on it right here. Now, suddenly, it's looking quite a bit different. Chris, what do you make out of that? Because now, and it's going to get better when you see Dave's version.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, right off the bat, when you lifted that, you could just see like a manipulation of something that's been done to this photo. And by darkening the photo, you don't see that. So the average person looks at this and says, oh, wow, those are nice rocks. Doesn't think twice about it. And just next, and just keeps going. But if you were to lift a lot of these shadows and see it, sometimes you can see things sticking out of the rock they didn't want you to see, this so-called rock. Manipulation and obfuscation like this here. This whole photo, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, and you guys know this because you've already looked at it, but you know as well as I did, this whole photo is either busted up pieces of intelligent something or other, and it just gets better in the background. The whole photo is just insane. It's just awesome.
It is, and this is just a NavCam image in which I've maintained that the NavCam images. Now, Chris, you might want to add to this and you too, Dave, because we see different ways that these things are obfuscated, from NavCam and even HazCam to the Mastcam imagery. The Mastcam imagery is supposed to be a lot more definition and color, where these are basically grayscale and lower resolution. These are actually made left and right, X, Y, Z coordinates, Cartesian mapping system to actually guide the rover. They don't need quite the resolution as the rest, and a lot of times they don't get the obfuscation that the Mastcam images get. Have you guys noticed that? What have you seen in that, Dave?
That's very true. There's a process. It's just like when you file a FOIA request and they give you back a bunch of pages that have everything blocked out with black marks. Everything's redacted. They do the same things to these images. And yet on the NavCam and HazCam images, very often, because they are low res and grayscale, and because they feel perhaps some fewer people look at them, they let things kind of slip through. And Chris is a past master at enhancing and bringing things out that are hidden within the photograph. And man, I wish I could do that in 3D. I'd be king of the world. But that when you zoom in again on that particular rock, if we look at about the 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock position in the shadows, there's a lighter area. If you can see it, just zoom right in there, and just above that rock to the left.
It's going to be right in this area.
See that little white spot there? Okay, when we dump the shadows on this one, that's going to open up, and it's a bit of a surprise.
Let's go ahead and pull over to the image that you sent me. And now this is 3D, but I'm going to pull this up, just the singular image first here. because I can get really close to it. And man, I just, you know, man, you did a great job. This is a great job. And, you know, it really bothers me when people will say, but you changed it, but you changed the image. And, you know, all I can say is they changed the image before they ever sent it to us. All we're trying to do is take it back as close to the original as we
can.
can.
Try to reverse it.
Right. Look at this thing, Chris. What do you think about this, man?
Yeah, I mean, you can see that this thing's been doctored, man. You can just see, and it's just the way you see it looks like compression squares, right?
Yes.
This is something they're able to do by themselves. In other words, if you were to back out of this, you should not see them squares anymore.
Right.
Compression artifacts is when you really zoom in, you really see these things big time, right? So if you look at this, you're looking at it, you're going, okay, why am I still seeing these? I can back out of I've done this on my own channel where I backed out, and guess what? It's still there. How is this possible? So it's something that they're doing themselves. They're adding this stuff. Like they just probably go click, 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 and just add it, you know, because again, we got a CGI section in JPL or whatever. And these guys, again, I keep saying this because at one time they laid off 250 employees that worked in the CGI department. Are you insane? So how many people are really working there? So, you know, they're proof viewing these, whatever they're doing to them, but it's clear that they know how to do this themselves. They're literally doing this themselves. And you can just see it. So now you try to break apart and try to see if there's an actual something within this so-called rock. And by doing what you did here, Dave, you can kind of get an idea of what's been added to this so-called object to make it look like a rock. That's what's really crazy about it. You just got to try to get to the meat of whatever they dress this thing up to look like, and then try to get to whatever it really is. And it's really difficult to do that. So you can see, and I'm loving the little details at the top of it. It almost looks like some kind of, I don't know if you want to call it like, you know, pictures, some kind of word, letters or something on there on the top of that. You see that?
Yeah.
It looks like it would be possibly something legible because that looks like a Y, that looks like an upsilon or whatever, a U. But my favorite part of this whole thing is what Dave calls an apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Folks, this isn't a matter of a trick of pixels. They like a lot of skeptics.
Yeah.
Not skeptics, but cynics will say, "Oh, that's a pixel." Most of these guys don't know what a pixel is.
Yeah.
This looks like piping of some sort to me. Now remember, keep in mind, this isn't a large object. This is only maybe a foot across this section right here. So we're looking at it maybe a couple or 3 feet from the bottom to the top, but still, that's enough to have a piping section. And Dave, where was this? There was an area you were talking about when you showed this to me the other day. And
right above your cursor, that little sideways W.
Yeah, this.
It's possible that that's an image artifact as opposed to being actually present.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's interesting that it didn't show up until the shadows were knocked back. And then that is especially clear in 3D. That lower left area, it seems to be, if that's not an artifact of the image, seems to be highly reflective, like a mirror finish.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this. And there is the cross 3D view. For those of you out there that know how to do this, you can do it right now, and you're gonna see this in beautiful crystal clear 3D. And man, we do this all the time because all of the nav cam imagery and the has cam imagery, especially from Curiosity and I think Opportunity. I'm not sure about Spirit. I think it's the same if they've released all of it. We pair these up and immediately dispel things that we don't need to waste our time on, and also absolutely confirm things. Now there's just the piping, as I want to call it, on this object really is beautiful through here when you're looking at this in 3D. And for those that use the left, right,
we find that all the time, don't we, Chris?
We do.
And we find gadgetry attached to these things that are supposed to be rocks.
Gadgetry.
All kinds of gadgetry, and it's like switches and pipes and cooling fins, all kinds of stuff.
That's
come on,
that's the word. That's the word, gadgetry. That's the one you used. I love it because sometimes I just can't come up with a name for it. So, it's gadgetry. What else can I say? Man, that's just a great job right there, Dave. I mean, that's just amazing. Go back to where we have this measurement real quick. because we got to look at this back section. Chris brought this up. You know, we see these a lot. We see these areas where it looks like everything is just kind of that there was something there, and it was almost like it was pushed down from above. This is one of those areas, and the measurements we took here, this is going to be about 7.5 feet in height from here to here, bottom to this pinnacle right here, which means that up to here we're looking at about 8 feet all the way to here. Now the distance along the baseline out to it, I think it's about 20 feet. I can't read the meters here, unfortunately, and 1.9 meters across here. We do these measurements via the analyst notebook. This is a complete NASA endorsed. That's actually their geological site, and that's the reason that this works is because it uses the nav cam imagery, the navigational camera imagery, where you have XYZ data, left, right, up, and down, height, width, depth, however you want to look at it. And not only is that what they use to guide the rovers to tell them where to go. When you match these up, you're able to see in absolute perfect, beautiful 3D. A lot of times the 3D imagery that especially Dave shows, he puts together when he matches up mass cam images. And those unfortunately are not synced up. They cannot be used for XYZ data and getting heights and distances, and height is going to be a profile measurement, but we're really not guessing on this stuff anymore. We're able to go in there, and I don't think anybody was using it, and they're just glad somebody's using it, even if they don't like why we're using it. That's okay. That's okay. This is going to be, for those of you who could do this at the moment, this is that same image, and it's a 3D version. And Dave, I'm going to try to get these up over on marsfam.net too, give you full credit for it. You did a great job. And
thank you.
Here is, and we're going to look at this thing up close, especially on the next image I got coming. This is the cross-view 3D version of that about 8-foot hill that's sitting back there. And for those of you who can't see that right now, I have this for you. Now, I built this based on it's basically a simplified depth map. I've been doing other stuff today. So where you can see what's near and what's far, and it's not guesswork. The 3D imagery was used for this. And Chris, does this look like a pile of rocks to you? What do you see here? This is bizarre to me.
Whatever this pile was at one point, we don't know if. Keep in mind, let's say it's something intelligently made, just for argument's sake. Okay. Now this thing gets blown to pieces. Now, obviously, NASA, JPL, whoever's doing these, are going to dress every little bit of these pieces up to look like rocks or some kind of gravel or whatever it may be. I see broken pieces of something else. It's not a rock at all. And this whole area is just littered with something intelligently made. Now, whether it be by stone, metals, which you can see what looks like these little bits and pieces, like on the left-hand side, that real shiny piece, that doesn't look like a rock. You can see like lines in this thing, like it's something else other than a simple smooth rock. And I see a lot of this all the time. It's nothing but scattered debris. And what they'll do is they'll take the debris and they'll doctor it up to look like rocks with this rock mimicking software.
And I believe that process is automated. That it kicks out, that you have a computer, a scanner that recognizes non-fractals. It obfuscates them, then it kicks it out to a human, and they do a fine tune on it and then release it.
Yeah, that's what I believe goes on too. And I've heard rumors, but yeah, I do believe that human eyes do come into play at some point, like stuff that Chris was talking about. But there is just too much of this. There's too many images. That's the thing. I don't think the average citizen knows just how many images are out there. The only thing they see,
tons of them.
No, all they see is the stuff that's put up there for people to laugh at on Yahoo every now and then, like a crab on the wall or something to that effect. And it's You know, it's a little disheartening, but that's the way that goes. And I wanted to show you guys this, and I didn't. This is that same. This is actually 4032 is the day, and it's just to the left of all of that. And there's this really strange object sitting out here, and I've tried like crazy to get something out of that, and it's just too dark. But this is, you know, this is another one of those things that's just sitting out there. It's just a bizarre looking boulder, and that thing is actually, in case anybody's wondering, it is 102 feet from the rover, and I've measured that at 8 foot high. That's 2.5 meters. That is an 8 foot tall boulder with a very narrow bottom to it. That's just kind of sticking up out there. And, you know, I just thought I'd bring this up because it's just something that we see all the time. And I don't know. What do y'all think about something like this? Chris, you know, when you look in the far back of most of these images, we see a lot of the same thing. We usually see stuff back here that we're saying, oh, it could be water, could be this, could be that. And if it's not, if it gets just to the point to where you think you could see it, then it's going to look like a painting back there, and it's going to be very blurred. And we're usually going to see areas like this where it looks like something has been lined along. We're going to have these hills that we found are going to be 10 foot tall, 20 foot tall, and what's the other, 30. Around 10, 20, and 30 is what we see most of the time. And most of them are around 20, I believe. 20 and 30. And what has been, Chris, as many of these pictures as you looked through, what do you think's going on in the background of these? And I'm bringing that up because of this. And this is the same, this is day 4036, but this is right there with everything else that we just looked at. What do you think is going on these hills?
Most of these things here, it's like the background of the prior one you just showed. That whole area in the dock in the bottom is actually structures. I've done that very same photo years ago. It's all structures laying right across there. Absolutely structures. All of this is just meshed together. The idea is to do this. Let's assume we are seeing like just structures all along the background right here.
Right.
If they could take some kind of the way they CGI it, if they could just make everything look like one thing, it takes the individuality out of them. So what they do is they dress the whole thing up to make it look like an absolute mountainside or hillside, and it takes every single thing out of it, so it just blends it all into one. What we're seeing here is absolute BS as far as I'm concerned. Most of his backgrounds, yeah, they're absolutely something in them. There's no doubt about it. They're not there just to kind of lollygag and, well, we're here, guys. Why don't we just take a couple photos of just little mountains and stuff? No, they're not doing that. There's a reason. They have, obviously they got a main purpose, and you could just see these things doctored up. And if you ever used like the raw plating in Photoshop, you can literally find everywhere they pretty much have censored these things, where they've blocked down, basically no detail in some sections. Like you said, either censored out or something to that, because they can just spot blur, digitize out different things, blend stuff, all kinds of good stuff like that, right? So yeah, these are absolutely BS, and when you break them down, it's awesome. It's just great.
This is why, and I've run off people because of this. I've said this going up 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that I believe that there were certain images, and not this one necessarily, but there were certain images where I didn't think anything was a rock. I don't think there's a single rock in the whole thing. And I had people just laugh at me. And this is people that believe basically that, yeah, we're looking at annihilated civilization here. But it says, oh, come on, Jimmy. People write, you're going to have to admit that some of those are rocks. Why? Why do I have to admit that? I don't necessarily think that any of these are rocks here. I think that it got hit really hard by something, and there's a lot of stuff torn up and covered up, and it's coming up through the surface. And I have said, I started out with 75%, and I said 85% of some of these images is totally fake, and it may be more than that. It just depends on how you're going to see it. But as far as how we're perceiving this, it may be more than 85% false. What about
Well,
you,
there's one.
Dave? Throw something in on this, man, because
Well,
am I
first of
crazy?
all, I agree with you. Second of all, I noticed early on that they tend to ignore things in the extreme distance at the horizon line. And so when we take the time and have sufficient resolution to check the horizon, very often you can find remarkable things there. You'll recall, Jimmy, the pyramid compound that I sent you
Right,
early on.
right.
3 pyramids with arches and pillars and courtyards and walls and all kinds of things. It was just a speck on the horizon. But when you took the time to go in there and work at the pixel level and not mess around, but just work with what's there, you come up with some things that are really surprising. So, are we going to get straight pictures from Perseverance? No. Their CGA department is even more adept than they ever have been. And unless there's some movement in the slow disclosure, they're going to continue the same old way. What I'm looking for is that we get a report that says, hey, we've discovered life, we found microbes. And that opens the door to the disclosure process. But until that happens, I think it's going to be the same old with better technology.
Well, in this set of images here, which is right in this same area, and it was just to the left of the original that we looked at. We're going to get all the way to the back, and I agree with both of you guys on this. And Dave, what you're saying about they ignore the background at times, yes, I think they do. And then there's the times when with what Chris is saying, I think is true, and they couldn't ignore it, and they have just obliterated it with something else, just totally covered it. And there's a stark difference. It's like either they realize it or they don't, or the software realized it or it didn't. And sometimes you can really tell a difference in the navcam image from the mastcam image, especially on a Curiosity rover. There'll be a huge difference in the background. You'll see all sorts of detail from the lower resolution images from the navcam. Then you look at it with the mastcam, and it's completely different. So, man, they keep us confused, but the only thing I can say is they're not fooling me. I know they're lying to us. That's as far as I can take it on that. This image has, in the background, has some very interesting things. And first, there is this object here, which is about a foot across from here to here. We have measured it. And it's kind of conical shaped here, and you can see obvious obfuscation here. It's grayed over.
Yeah, but look at the very tip that's closest to us. That's the part they missed.
They missed the part that's closest to us. It didn't get that. And in other images, seen from a slightly different angle, they got it. It's completely gray. And that's one of the things I look for. In the back, amazing on this one that in the back, and just look at everything that's back here on the way back there. I think it's pretty incredible. In the very back, I think this one, they have done some obfuscation through here because it starts to look like a painting. And I know that this is a navcam image, but still, there's enough resolution, and for some reason, we were able to get a distance on this. Normally, when it's this far in the background, I can't get it, but on this one we could. So this rise back here, I measured at 7 feet tall from here to here, and when you look at this in 3D, it's actually going over a hump here, so it's going to be around 10 feet, just like they normally are, Chris. And this object we're about to look at that David pointed out years ago is right here, and it's about 13 feet across. Now, give or take a little bit, because this is way, way back there, okay? And this point down here at the bottom, the distance to the rover is 125 yards. I understand 125 yards better than I do 114 meters and 374 feet, because I know that's a football field plus both end zones and a little more. I think we can all relate to that. From here, that's the distance we're looking at right there. A football field plus both end zones, okay? So there's no guessing there. Now, here is one of the 3D images, and I'm going to zoom in on this on a second for those who can see it in CrossView 3D. Go ahead and look at that. And this one, now I'm going to zoom in. First of all, I think this is really nice right here. Uh, it's you can see this area here it's almost like
It's
broken
shaped, yeah.
like a shell over
Mhm.
the outside of it, and look at this rim right here where it goes up in the point here, and we have a circular area here. Something's just been ripped off the top of this. We'll move back. Here is our cone shaped object from another angle. And you know, Dave, I know you've looked at this quite a bit, and you can see right here on the ground there's a cleared area. I don't even necessarily trust the ground on these images. A lot of times they'll add the dirt or the sand or the mud, and you can see it clearly in thousands of images. What do you make out of this, Dave? Because I know you did the 3D work and looked at it over and over.
Well, it's not non-practical enough for me to include it in an episode, but to my mind and from my background, just like yours and Chris, that's not a rock. You can see it's not a rock. It has a roughly a square shape. There's been some doctoring of the surface portions. You know, you got this parallel, and then that business in the soil off the point. I mean, what's up with that? What is it? What's going on there?
it looks like a segmented flooring. There's segments all
Uh,
along here, and there's
uh,
kind of pieced together. And the most obvious part of the obfuscation here is this really bad. I almost want to call it a Photoshop job here of just a spray right here, because there's obviously
yeah,
something in this area that was going to really give things away. And right behind it, you can see the obfuscation back here. We've got something going down into the ground. And it's just really pretty dang obvious to me. But when we get back here to the back and we see more and more of that, we get to a really uh, nice job by Dave here bringing this out. And what's the story behind this one, Dave?
well, it's no big deal, but I just ran across it and it looked like a dome to me. There's a lot of garbage, a lot of JPEG artifacts in there. But as I cleaned it up and I worked on it at a very close level, and a lot of times when I'm working on something so close, I have no idea what it looks like until I back off. But when I backed off, it sure as heck looked like a dome to me with sunlight reflecting off a smooth surface with little dark archways, doors, or windows, whatever they may be. And to
And
the right of that, another dome that's up on a pedestal.
remember,
With a,
what did we say this? What did I say that was about 14 feet? Is
yeah,
that
13,
yeah
14 feet.
yeah? So it's got a little bit of size to it. And what do you make out of this coming down from the smaller? It's almost a zigzag.
Yeah, and I found that interesting, and this is just me, but from a military standpoint, uh, a zigzag pathway, if you make your adversaries follow that path, they expose themselves to fire. This is the best way to protect an area is to control the pathway. The other thing that says to me is that that ground may be very dangerous to step on for whatever reason, that you have to stay on that path, whether it's perchlorates, whether it's critters, whatever it may be. But that little path right there speaks to me of a defensible position.
Well, if you look up
And
here, there's more of this. It looks like they're broken
yeah,
up. You see these
yeah,
these angular pieces up here, and you can really see them
yeah,
through. Here's a large V shape here on its side, and there's a smaller one here and a smaller one here. So that may not be the only one.
exactly right. And we don't know what state of repair these things are in, whether they're just derelict or whether they are currently occupied and being cleaned up a little bit for occupation. But in the close-up image, it's pretty easy to see that that dome is really not a rock.
Hmm.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I've always said it looked like the top of R2D2. Um,
It
well, I
does.
mean, because you get that kind of dome look to it,
Yeah,
and I've
exactly.
seen that too. I've seen this. You've done this a while back, and
Yeah, a long time.
I liked it because I saw, like you said, that smaller dome type thing, and I'm looking at that thing and I'm going, how is that possible? There's two of them, two different sizes, on the top of this mound. So either these domes are part of something that's inside this mound, or they are just happen to be sticking out, and they just happen to be on top of the mound. Now, lately, I've been seeing things that look like they're actually embedded. Um, like like these Martians or beings or whatever they were might have built into these buttes, because you can see framework in a lot of these things. You can see things
Yeah.
coming out of them, or they built and then they just threw the rock on top of it. Whatever the case is, I don't care what it is, because I've always said, listen, sand, gravel is a great insulator towards radiation. So
You got it.
if you build into a mountain, you're protected no matter what the weather is. Doesn't matter what any kind of solar radiation. It could be gunfire. Let's say you're in a mountain here on Earth and you're trying to hide from somebody. How are they going to get to you? So when I seen that, I was just like, that's interesting. I wonder if there's something much more below that, into that, or not, because there's a lot of, like you just pointed out, Jimmy. There's a lot of things all over that hillside that just they look like they're more intelligent made than natural, right?
Yes. And I'm going to tell you something interesting I saw several years ago, and I don't go to these sites anymore. And I think it was the above top secret forum, which is just infested with
Disinformation.
oh man, it's bad. It's bad. And I noticed this image being in there one time, and there was a discussion, and the debunkers came in there and got into a supposed discussion. I imagine this being the same person. Got into a supposed discussion and made the decision that this was the Russian probe that crashed way back. What was the name of it? It wasn't not Phobos. We're talking about the one that crashed. It landed. I think it sent 14 seconds of data back, and that was it.
Right.
It said, that's what it is. Oh yeah, that's it. And left it at that. And they said, no, this has been solved. And I'm thinking, is anybody going to believe that they just happened to
What
run?
all the rest of the things are finding in these photos? Come on now.
The thing that gets me is we find all these screws and all these equipment and all these nut plates and all these sheets of metal. And they say, well, that fell off the rover. It's like, good grief, man. There should be nothing left of the thing by now.
And the thing's still going after all these years, man. That's incredible.
With all these parts falling off.
Yeah.
Now here's a great 3D X3 cross 3D version that Dave did, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in here just a little bit, and you can see a little bit better what he's talking about with these zigzags coming down through here, and you can actually see a little bit more detail up here too. And it's just hard to tell sometimes how much they've actually covered up and how much they haven't when it's in the background, especially. And this is one that just seems to me like they didn't care a whole lot. I think on this one, if you notice over just how rough this looks to me on this one, I think they just kind of left it. If they left this, I think they just kind of left everything back there and figured nobody was going to care. Because to me, it usually comes back just looking like a big painting when they go back there and draw over everything. And then there's the mast cam type imagery, where you never know what color they're going to pick, whether it's going to be red, blue, orange on a certain day. And this is a 3D image that Dave put together of that same hill we saw, and he was pointing at angle. Different angle, and he was pointing out this section right here. And if you actually view this, let me show you the other. Actually, got two perspectives of it here, and if you look at this in 3D, you'll notice there's about three, I guess, what do you call them, Dave? Nodules?
Yeah, they look like rivets to me.
Yeah, rivets.
I just call them rivets. I don't think that's what they are.
It does have that kind of look to it, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we see that a lot. In fact, in the that's something we found a whole lot in the Dingo Gap entrance area down when you're going over it on that left side. There's those areas that just look like they got rivets everywhere, and also what looks like rebar. And I'm wondering if you've noticed in so many, you can right here in a bunch of these, and it's more prevalent actually when we go back to the navcam imagery for this area. You'll see a lot of little protrusions that it looks like somebody took Photoshop and liquefied and just kind of pulled it out like this. But I think it's not that. I think there was something there, probably rods sticking out, because seen it over and over. These things that look like rebar to me, and you'll see them in succession, in sequence, like they would be. But over on those NavCam images that we were just looking at, you see something very similar, but it's just like they took it and just kind of pulled it out and gooed it out. I think that was just their, process. I don't know, guys. Do you think, and it's almost impossible to tell, I'm going to ask you first, Chris, do you think the civilization that they're looking at is more of a Bronze Age type civilization? And that's what I think people are going to think if they think these are all rocks. And people talk about inscriptions. They've got not inscriptions, but carvings. They'll see something and they'll say carvings. And I'll ask, well, why is it a carving? And they'll say, well, that's, you'd carve in the rock. So I just don't know that the whole rock thing is a complete farce. And this might have been a advanced civilization. It's not to say they didn't have masonry, right, Chris?
Right. Well, I mean, to me, like I said, let's suppose that they actually build into these buttes and mountains. Okay, that doesn't mean they can't still be high tech. Again, they may be using nature to, again, guard himself against the sun and rain, and or maybe other people, or you know what I mean, like maybe other attackers and stuff like that. But let's just say, and simplify it, just say, okay, maybe they had both. Maybe they had the high tech. It's kind of like us. We live in brick buildings, and yet we have high tech stuff. So why is it hard to believe that possibly they built into hillsides and stuff like that and still be high tech? But I don't believe that's the case as far as like all of them being built into that. I think there were structures there, normal structures. I think there was high tech, everything, because you can see it scattered about. It's all over the ground. And these guys are literally meandering through these, trying to get through these ruins and stuff like that. And they're taking every photo they can. Like if you were to see maybe any of the photos you just showed now, undoctored, can you imagine the stuff that they're seeing on the ground there?
Right, because
then they go, okay, send it over CGI and have at it. I mean, and that's what they're doing. They're pretty much saying, okay, so we're seeing the real deal. We're seeing what we want, what we needed to see. It's taken high quality, and I'm almost guarantee you guys, you're going to say the same thing. These things probably start off as high definition. They obviously, because they want the clearest photo they can find, right? And I don't believe for a moment that these are like 2 meg cameras. No. These things are much bigger, and they can adjust them like any digital camera. You can get in there and put, like if you have a 12 meg, you can go from 1 meg up to 12 meg. So you can make these things very large. You can see whatever you want. So now they go, okay, take a copy of it. Okay, now I want you to put it down to, let's take another photo only in 1 meg or 2 megs. And then we're going to doctor it up. We're going to send it out to the public for them to, to look at. So now you try to zoom in, what happens? It degrades. It goes to crap.
And it's frustrating.
Now couple that with manipulation, couple that with censoring, and what happens? You got a big piece of crap for a photo. But in the meantime, they get this high quality, very large photos. It looks fantastic. They're seeing what they sent these rovers to see. And we were getting this garbage it's so low res, it's sad. But I believe that it's a combination of, they probably use a lot of stonework and very high tech at the same time.
Well, here's an example. This is that image we were just looking at, where Dave got in a lot closer, and you can see these 3 nodules they almost look like bulbs right there. And also this piece right here, that is everything but an extension of a rock and some outcropping right here. But anyone that says, these are just, this is just, what do you want to say, an artifact, blah, blah, blah. There's shadows underneath all 3 of them. Look at it. They're all 3 of these are protruding enough to cast a shadow.
Well, even the 2 of the smaller ones there, they're just not sticking out as much, so the shadow's actually less of it. You can see there's actually 5 of them there.
Yep, there is. You're right. I do. Yes. Well, possibly more than that. I see at least 2 more here, and possibly down here. I mean,
what I find very interesting too is that and the folks that are on my channel know this, that when you view these things in X3D, your mind automatically clears things up, and you see them far more clear than a 2D picture, because your mind is entering into it and saying, "Oh, okay, I see what that is. Let's clean it up a little bit and zoom in on it." And I mean, your mind does the work for you. But I get the Chris. I think same thing. We find so much gadgetry on things. The tubing and the levers and I'm thinking of the Maroney mechanism that we put up last
Hmm.
year. And I get the impression that they were a very advanced kind of steampunk uh, civilization where they had high tech, they had electricity, they had uh, most of the things that we associate with modern civilization. They're masters of stone, but they didn't care or were not able to move beyond that certain level that they were destroyed.
Hmm.
That's just an impression I get. I got nothing to base it on except, looking at this stuff for years, just like you.
Well, we have a lot of examples of places where there's apparent concrete or some other similar type of composite material, and I think uh, one of the places such as well, again, just past Dingo Gap into what that going down into that what is it called, Moonlight Valley. We've seen the perfect rectangular blocks, but near them we've seen these concrete blocks that are busted, where it looks like water came through or something and busted them up, and the platforms. I mean, it's some of the most artificial, just right in your face stuff that
Hmm.
there is in those Moonlight Valley and Dingo Gap images. I mean, it's to me it's bizarre because it's so obvious that if you've noticed, it's been on more than one show that I've gotten on that I've showed this, and one of the guys up in New York, he's a skeptic. He's not a cynic. He's a skeptic. And when I showed him those images live, he said, "Wait a minute, that looks artificial." And I said, "Yes, it does." He said, "You got that from often, you downloaded that from NASA's site." I said, "Yes, I did." And he just sat back. I need to find that clip. And I said, "Well, look at this one." He said, "Wow." And he
Yeah.
told me later, he said, I didn't know those were up there. I say, nobody does. Very few people realize how much there is. And we're just looking for the mistakes. That's all we can do is look for the mistakes. And Dave, we talked about this right here. This is the last part of this that we're going to look at, and it's kind of a. Actually, you came up with this. I'd never seen it. It's kind of a. I guess you'd call this a context view, right? What describe what we're
Yeah,
seeing here?
it's one of the mosaics that they put together. You can find that on the analyst's notebook for that particular solve, and they have usually two or three, sometimes more. Pretty good mosaics.
And it's a different perspective completely, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
I think the rover would have be sitting. Is it going to be about 9 o'clock from us here? Is that was
Mm,
was
yeah,
maybe off
what
screen?
I bracketed the solves. I think I was looking at 4036, and I went one day before and one day after to see what they had. And I think I pulled this one out of whichever one comes after 4036.
So is this
They're not
possibly?
sequential.
It's so the rover would have been sitting back this
Yeah,
direction to the left.
yeah.
Do you think that too, Chris? Are we positioned right? If
Yeah, sounds about right.
yeah, okay. Well, that's going to mean, I don't know. In fact, see, I don't see any tracks.
Right.
Is the thing here? I just don't see the tracks, and so I'm wondering what this is. Is this the object that we were really looking at that did the work on that was seeming to just balance on its edge? Because we're looking at it completely from the side here, and I'm just not sure.
Hmm.
I'm
It's
Yeah,
hard
it's
to
hard
tell.
to
I'm
tell.
puzzled too.
Yeah,
I
it's
couldn't
it's
say
really
for sure.
strange when you change perspectives. It's really weird. And Dave, I know you've done this a lot, trying to line up 3D images, trying to
Yep.
make 3D out of them, and say, you know what? When you turn it this way, oh my gosh, now everything's so much closer together, and you got the parallax to deal with, and I'm looking at this, and I'm going, what is all that? And what was this that we were looking at? It's just amazing to me how everything changes perspective. But either way, this is basically a painting, as far as I'm concerned. And you can look at this back here. This is just it's a painting to me. I don't believe it. Uh, they made it look like just a bunch of blue rocks stacked up, and I just don't think that's what we've got at all. And they've left some peculiar ones such as this just kind of sticking up and over, and I don't know. It just looks like a somebody's. I don't know. That's something I just noticed though is they did leave this area right here, which appears to be, and I can't zoom anymore. There's a 90-degree turn to it here. This looks like a flat, would be part of a flat surface. If this continued this direction to the right, you can see the different layers of it. And I didn't notice that before, but there probably is something like that underneath. And you can just imagine if everything was pushed down, and if it were nuclear in nature, and it hit from above, it would probably look something like this. Everything is going to be pushed down, and the background, I think is I think it's a painting. I think it's just basically a mural. What is this object? I'm just wondering if this is what direction we're looking at it from, guys, because I'm seeing stuff back here that I didn't see before. Maybe it was over the hill.
I think Oppie was just taking a cruise along the rim of that crater. I've forgotten the name of the crater offhand. It's not Roosevelt, but it's anyway. Yeah, he's just making a.
Well, there's some very interesting stuff on the rim of it right here. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Look at this. I mean, they didn't even mess with this a whole lot because we can't zoom in anymore without it breaking up. Have you seen this back here, Chris?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we can't get to it. That's the problem. And I think you gave us the name. There we go. There's our names.
Spirit of St. Louis crater. There it is.
Yeah, that's it. And
I was actually trying to think of the very same one, and I said until you said it, it's like, oh, that's right.
Okay, so it was back over here to the left, guys, because when I showed that 8-foot tall structure that was sitting to the left, just way off in the back, it's Marathon Monument, and that's it over here.
Yep, sure enough.
So, it's actually going to be back here, kind of off in this area, right in here where my cursor is to the far left, look in this direction, and which is going to put your domes and stuff on top of what would it be?
Off to the left there.
Yeah, it's going to be out of view, and if it's going to be back on, well, no, actually there it is, right there. There's one. There they are. There's one of them right there. I didn't notice that before. So,
Could be.
Yeah. I think that may be the big one, and this may be the smaller one. So that's about where they would. That's going to be about right. And remember, from this area here, where I measured to here was about 7 feet. Was actually right along here, 7 feet up to here. So this all the way to the bottom is going to be more like 10 feet when we get to the top of it here. So it's just about what we normally see, guys.
Yeah.
And this one though is only about 8 foot, but this is not one of these typical hills. This is something else that was sitting there that was destroyed. This isn't these hills, large hills and mounds and buttes as they call them, that we see over and over and over again in the curiosity images especially. And I know we're not really talking about those, but I just wanted to hear what you guys think about those. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Before we get off here, these recurring buttes that are usually about 20 feet tall, and some of them are 30, and they run, many of them just side by side. You've seen them, Chris. What do you think about those things?
Well, years ago when I had done all of the buttes that are right there in the southern part of Mount Sharp, when you look at that, all of them, they're lined up. And I said they were like, it's something like a used car lot. Like all of these things are literally lined up. And I'm going, it's one thing to see buttes in a desert. We know they exist, common sense, right? But when you see these things literally lined up and there's not one, sticking out or anything. They're all lined up almost perfectly. And then there's larger ones behind it. It makes you wonder how these things, like you're saying, 20, 30 feet, none of them are forward or back than the other. You'll have a whole line of them straight across, and then there's some behind that are larger. To me, those are structures. Those are not, mountains or parts of the mountain that like they want you to believe.
Looks like organized channeling. Looks like organized channeling to me.
Yeah. Whatever it is, I mean, it seems like it's more intelligently made than it is natural. That's the way I see it.
What about you, Dave?
Well, we find that, and we know that this panorama we're looking at right now is a so-called false color image. However, the images that we process where we remove the dust cover and adjust the colors to where they're supposed to be, we still find in these monuments, so to speak, blue rocks. Well, they look like metal. They look
Mm.
like corroded, fused steel or some other metal that's reflecting the blue of the sky above. And you know how hard we fought with the blue sky, how they poo-pooed that for so many years until they started putting them out saying, oh, look, the sky's blue.
Oh, until the
But
Mars Insight
but yeah,
lander.
it just seems so repetitive that these hills, like we're looking at today, have roughly the same morphology wherever we go.
Mm.
It looks like something that's been blasted from above, fused by tremendous heat, shattered, and scattered. And the evidence is right there in front of us, I guess.
Yeah, and for anyone that hadn't followed any of these channels or any of our work and work of a number of other people, one of the things that we really trying to do is to get away from, as these guys said, the fantasy and all, and get to the truth of what's going on. It's very difficult. You know the old saying, why are all the pictures of UFOs and things on Mars fuzzy? You know, they're not all fuzzy. We have some that are very clear that they missed, and the ones that are fuzzy, we just don't really worry about it. What my question is, why are the images that we get fuzzy to begin with? Don't ask why this is a fuzzy alien or whatever. Ask why is the image fuzzy to begin with? It's probably been skewed, it's been blurred, it's been masked, the whole image has been obfuscated. You're asking the wrong people. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find these mistakes in their process, because although we do have some, it's extremely hard to find just a blatant object that nothing's been done to. We have some, we do believe, and some of them are really blatant, even though the texture and the color's been covered up on the outside. We've got concrete blocks, we've got metal, we've got organized, intelligently constructed areas throughout. And I realize today what we're looking at is a little harder to see what we're talking about, but what we're getting at here is that these pictures are faked. There's truth underneath these images, but I'm up to 90% or more on some of these images as far as the how false that it is. And one of the first questions I get is, well, then why do they release it at all? And Chris, what's your answer to that? Why do they even bother releasing these pictures if they're going to fake it like they do?
Well, the thing is, it's like I always tell people, we're not the first people to see these. There's scientists, geologists, so on and so forth, that work for NASA, JPL, and all these other space agencies. So they're taking a look at these, they're looking at them and stuff like that. And so they're legit photos. You can even put them into, what is it, photo forensics you can get online. And they'll go, look, it's a real photo. You can see it's got some information about it. Not always, but it'll tell you, sometimes it'll tell you the camera and so on and so forth, right? The thing about it is like, okay, so you got other people seeing these. These are legit photos. Okay, so now they're going, okay, now we can't show the public clearly what's in these photos. So what do? CGI. That's basically what it comes. And here's the thing: what people don't understand, they've been doing this since long before the moon photos. The Apollo missions and stuff like that. It's clear because I've done this myself and pull these moon photos apart, and clearly they're being censored. So if they'd done it to those, what makes them think that they wouldn't do them to the Martian photos? It's it's just the way it is. So they are legit photos. They're just being, like I said, they're just dropping a layer over these and blocking them out. But if you can get past the colors that are fooling your eyes, the other objects. I mean, sometimes you can see an object within a rock. Literally, it's like they put something over it, and sometimes they do such a lousy job. It's transparent. You can literally see an object behind it. That's what's crazy. So when people start to see that, and I don't know if you were gonna show that one last time. I was gonna show that very original photo. I wanted to show the background because when I look at photos, I look at lines. Okay. I try to find lines in any photo. That is not a mountain behind us. Woo, greenage.
Yeah, you turned green, Jimmy.
Yeah, there he goes. He's back. I was gonna say he just went alien on us.
He's still green for me, but I like it that way.
Oh yeah, he looks so much better. Um, but that photo, that mountain in the back is not mountains at all. It's you can see just to get the lines, pull the lines out of there, and there's things laying all over the background of that.
Is this the image you're talking about?
Well, just pull back a little bit. Go back to the original photo. Yeah, it's in the background there. If you look in the back, there's lines. If you want, I'll share the screen just so people can see this background, because we don't have to get into the whole foreground. We don't want to take it too much longer, but I'll show the background. Just go back to the right again. Just slowly go back to the right into the background.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right.
I can do it.
Do you see right there? Right there. Look at the very top. Do you see where your cursor is? There is a rectangular box right there in that mountain. It's huge. You're right in the middle of it. There's a black line going from up on the left of it, going all the way across and then down. Very faintly, but it's a darker area.
Hey, have you got something on that? You said?
Yeah.
Yeah, bring that up. Let's look at that. We got a few more minutes here.
Hold on, let me do this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share this. Now this is still in my Photoshop, so I'm going to show you guys this. Okay. If you look in the back here,
okay,
I'm just going to show this without even doing anything to this yet, rather. All right, let's do this. Well, wrong one. Let's do it this way. Right here. Here. There. There's lines here. Whoop, that didn't go very straight, but you get the idea. Now, let me just go ahead and, I'm going to have to move this over because it's in the middle here. Let me just go ahead and just enhance it, okay? Plus it's running slow. But check out the lines in this photo. There's things in this back of this hillside. It's not a hill. And whatever that is, you can see straight lines, 90-degree angles. There's things piled in the back of this, and whatever that is in the back, that is not a mountain. Whatever that is clearly not a mountain. It's not naturally made.
Man, it's really not. And you know, that really, oh man, I tell you what, this all through back here, it's really bringing out something here, here. I love that. Hey, that was magical, man. I love that. Zoom in a little bit on it. I don't think it'll break up too much.
I didn't put any blur in this to kind of, make it look a little bit better.
That's
but
all right.
As you can see, let me get rid of these little box here up here at the top. We don't need that.
I don't need no sticking box.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, clearly they're there. I mean, it just, and I can go back to the original.
Yeah, just right in the front, the very front line, and right in the center is a crenellated wall. It's got spires coming off of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's something else in here too. It's almost like, if you can picture this kind of like set back, in other words, go like this here. And it's like, if we're looking at this thing at an angle, and it's probably deeper than we're seeing, but because of this manipulation, they literally threw it over, hoping you wouldn't see the lines. The lines tell all. And when you can docker those lines, then you go, whoa, what's going on here? Why is this in the side of this mountain? Because clearly that doesn't make sense.
And why are there so many beautiful squares and rectangles?
Yeah, why would that be like that? And like I said, just look at any line that's in here. You can still see them faintly. They're right there.
Yeah, they're there.
This, like I said, this one over here, you can obviously see that. It's almost like you can't unsee it now. It's there. And you've got these, like I said, these weird kind of things going on here. And like I said, you can literally pick them out pretty darn easy now.
Yeah, once you know they're there. And a lot of people need to realize that when we say enhancing, we're not drawing on the images. That's not what we're doing. Usually it's a matter of brightness and contrast work is what's done.
See, I'm jockeying back and forth. So anybody can look at these themselves and look at the lines. They're in the photo. All I'm doing is just docketing whatever lines that exist and bringing them out. That's basically in a nutshell.
Yeah, man, you got to wonder what that. Yeah.
That's great, Chris.
That is great.
That's great.
That is.
There's so much in these photos. It's mind-boggling. And, we didn't even get into the foreground. I found so much stuff in there where you can see like there's white objects. If you ever look at a rock, supposed rock, if you look at a rock and you see like pieces of white, you want to try to use the dodge tool to bring the rest of that whiteness out, because there's actual objects. They're not even rocks. They're actually objects. And they're intelligently made objects. They're not rocks at all. And they do a great job of really covering these things up, or pretty damn close, right? But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating when you see these. People go, if you just grab the photo, look at, oh, wow, pile of rocks, next, and you go over. How does nobody look at these photos and go, why in this day and age, we sent a multi-million-dollar machine there, but it takes the crappiest photos ever possible. It's like they put a lens in a potato and look through it. I just don't understand the logic. And I go, and nobody questions this. Like, this is going to be like the creme de la creme. Caltech makes all of these cameras for these things, for the rovers. They made every single one of them, and they designed them top notch. They're not going to put some mediocre camera you could buy from Walmart, maybe a little 2 megapixel. Come on, anybody believes that's got to be out of their mind, because this is the eyeballs of NASA. It's the next best thing. So when you put it on a machine, you want the best camera you could possibly put on this machine. Why would everything else be high tech on it and just, well, we'll just put a mediocre camera? Hell, we don't have to worry about that. Come on. I mean, let's be honest here. You're going to put the best technology you can put on to date, and probably even better than what you and I could go out and buy on this rover.
It's the Independence Day paradox all over again, and here we are again. And I'm not going to go through that again. I've defined this enough times, and I think it's a real thing. And but I'm going to give another example of, and it just simply means that in movies, people see things that they accept, even though the movie may be outlandish. There's certain things in there that certain people realize, this is ridiculous. It ruins the movie for me. And just quickly, on Independence Day, the thought of aliens attacking the Earth is not that obscene to me. I mean, who's to say it couldn't happen? Right. It's possible. I mean, prove to me that it can't happen. But you're not going to put a computer virus. You're not going to write a computer virus and stick it in some alien technology that you don't even know anything about, and it work. That is just so. It's like I can't even wrap my head around how they even put that in the movie. And then a lot of other people go, well, so what? No. Just like in a show we were watching, and my wife and I, and someone said, I'm going to reprogram this to work. This time I'm going to program it in binary. And he walks off, and I thought, what? Program it in binary? Binary is a numbering system, not a programming language. But nobody cares. They say, oh, this goes on in real life.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've been processed. I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but we watch too many movies and stuff and accept things for what they say it is. And this is an example of real life right here, to where, like you say, it doesn't make logical sense. What do you got to say about that, Dave? Then we'll get out of here.
Well, the technobabble is always a part of almost any.
I love your terminologies. Thank you so much. That is why you are here.
Yep.
But
gotta love them.
I love it all the time.
I'm going to write them down. I'm serious. I'm
taking notes.
Yeah, right. Like you need to. Both of you guys have been into this longer than I have, and you're far more adept at your processing skills than I am. But what I find is that people who are serious about this, like Chris or Jimmy and a number of others we could name, don't waste their time putting labels on things or assigning fantastic speculations to them. Speculation's fine. Speculate all day. But to me, I want to find the nuts and bolts and put it in front of people in 3D. And then you tell me what you think about it. Because I know what I think about it. I'm not going to tell you. I'll speculate. I'll tell you when I speculate. But yeah, the movies and TV, and as a matter of fact, if you look at a Star Trek script, maybe Geordie LaForge is with data down in engineering, and they'll say something like, well, we're not really sure where this is going to, how this is going to work out. And then when you look at the actual TV script, it says technobabble in parentheses, and then they have people who are experienced in writing things that sound scientific, but have nothing to do with anything.
I didn't know the word existed. Well, everybody, Dave, his YouTube channel where you can learn this 3D. As a matter of fact, if you go to marsfam.net and go to the 3D section, now I have a little instructional I put together to help you learn to do it. That I learned.
That's the best. That is the best instructional X3D video I have ever seen. It's wonderful. You should win a reward for it.
No, it is really good, because if you want to learn it, that's the place to do it.
Well, thank you very much.
Way to do it.
The reason I created that is because I was having trouble. But once you get it, man, it's fantastic. And in there is a link. There's actually an intro video by Dave and a link to his channel. And he has got a plethora. How do you like that? Everybody knows that word.
Ooh,
Yeah,
Broke it
whatever.
down. I like that.
Whatever. Come on.
yeah.
Of
He didn't even spray that
three
time.
3D stuff on his channel, and he is the reason that I'm able to do it. He was the guy that introduced me to it, and didn't just introduce me, walked me through it until I could get it. But his channel is Mars X 3D, The Evidence, and I have a link that I put up on this broadcast, and I hope it works, because you all know how my links were. And today, the email that went out had the wrong date on it. If there's something I don't do right, it's going to be that. But that's the name of his channel. Make sure you visit it. And if you can't find it, go through my channel. I got a link to it. Chris, of course, is at his main channel is Mars Anomalies and Beyond. And I need a reverb behind me when I say that.
Yeah, it's like, no.
And let me add that if anybody out there is interested in anomalies, if you're serious about it and want to cut through all the BS, check out Chris, because he's got it happening over there.
Oh, he does. He really does. Chris, well, you can tell. And both you guys, you're not playing around with the BS. You know, we've all gone through a learning process of what's real and what's not, and how to figure that out as much as we can. And you know, you're two of the few that I know of that I'm not going to have to deal with coming on and say, hey man, there's a lady and a dragon laying out here, and with a bunch of kids behind her. And even though I tell you, look, I got another image of that was from 3 hours earlier. They're still in the same position. That if it is that, it's a painting or something. There's no that everybody.
Little kids over there jump roping. You don't
Yeah,
see them?
yeah. And
Well,
you know, I've made
she's
my mistakes too. I can't.
wearing a blue dress and she has a shawl, and look how her hair is done, and that little dog
Just
that
blowing in the wind.
But it's just like, I'm sitting there like, am I in the
I just-
red zone? What's going on here?
Yeah, I just don't see it.
Oh gosh, the hit's going to be put out on Dave. I'm worried now. Anyway, guys, listen, we do have to get together and do this more often, if it's once a month. Everybody's got their work that they do. We all have other lives besides this, but we feel this is very important, and because NASA's not coming out anytime soon and telling you, hey, guess what? So if they do, you need to be ahead of the game, though, because it's real. That's one thing that we agree on. No matter what we may discuss, we know one thing that we're not going to argue about, and that is, yeah, there's I use the word annihilated. That doesn't mean totally wiped out, but nearly. Genocide of some type did occur on Mars and been investigated.
It's a recon mission. That's what they're there for.
When y'all agree that, I mean,
Yeah,
you're not going to convince me otherwise at this point. So we'll get together again, get with these guys. Make sure you go to their channels and subscribe. It's very important you subscribe to our channels and re-hit that bell thingamajig, because if you don't, you're not going to be notified when we upload something, and Google will laugh. Yeah, and they will.
They don't know any better.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. But for Dave Gannett and Chris Maroney, y'all keep your eyes open. Send us one more thing. If you have something that you think that we need to investigate and look further into and try to do an image analysis on, you can email. Well, how would you like them to contact you, Dave?
Email is on the channel. It's just marsx3d at gmail.com.
And Chris?
Yeah, mine's just simple. Mine's Mars Anomalies at AOL.com.
Yes, and I am using Jimmy at marsfam.net. So please send us something if you think it's something that we should look into. And if it is, we will sure do it. And until next time, for Dave and Chris, we'll see y'all later.